Hey guys, it's Lee with Untapped Potential. Okay, so our daily for today is the Archetype Paragon. We have to win 4 duels using either a red-white or a blue-red deck. And I haven't made one for either of those yet. So let's go ahead and head to the deck menu real quick and build one. 4 duels is a long time, especially given that I have to, I believe, win 4 duels. So we're going to do something a little different this episode. We're going to build the deck live. And then after that, I'm going to record my matches, but I'm only going to cut to the high points. And then, I'm not going to be doing live commentary, I'm going to overdub them to explain what happened, so I can pause the video, walk you through my train of thought, and explain in a bit more detail. But for building the deck, I figure we better do it live. Something else that I need to note right now before we continue. At the moment, you only get credit for doing dailies if you build your deck doing the deck wizard. On the Magic Duels subreddit, user Wizards Chris, a Wizards of the Coast employee, has said on the record that that is actually currently a bug and that in the future you should be able to use Deck Builder to accomplish your dailies. I will amend this video, or at least put something over the screen with an annotation when that is no longer the case, but for right now, we do have to use the Deck Wizard. So let's jump in. Now, we can either do red-white or blue-red. And the cards that I own, white-red, I think is the better choice for us. Just because I've opened a few packs, I've got better stuff in it. I love the red-blue, and I love some Thopter action, but at the moment, I just don't have the cards to support it. So we're going to make an all-out assault. The way that the Deck Wizard works is it requires you to grab certain cards at certain amounts for a strategy that it tries to steer you down. So for right now, it wants us to choose 14 cards. Creatures, creatures, and more creatures. And we only get to choose from 5 at a time. For a start, our Knight of the White Orchid is fantastic. We're going to play it. Ember Haulers have also done some major work for me. Something tricky that we've done so far, though, is we are putting ourselves in 2 different colors that both require double of their color on turn 2. We need to be wary of that. So to counterbalance that, at least a bit, we're going to jam in as many Perilous Mirrors as it'll let us. It's a 2-drop that only has 1 power and 1 toughness, but when it dies, it deals 2 damage to target creature or player, which can do some real work for us. Coming back here now, we're still looking like we're building some sort of early rush deck. Kinsbale Skirmishers will let our early creatures get bigger, allowing them to either trade up or get in for extra damage. We have 2 more choices to make here. We can either put in some 1-drops for some early action, or Enthralling Victors to steal some of our opponent's creatures. Victor is only as good as what our opponents are playing, so for right now, I'm inclined just to jam in a couple 1-drops, like 2 Elite Vanguards. With their 2 power and 1 toughness, they can come out of the gate swinging. Step 2, we need to bring in some team support. And this is the stuff that makes our creatures more powerful. I would choose Infectious Bloodlust here if I had more of them, since they replace each other when they die, but I don't. So I'm just going to go ahead and jam 4 Inferno Fists here and call it a day. It makes our creatures stronger, but it also, at instant speed, for a single red mana and sacrificing this spell, allows us to do 2 damage. Excellent for wiping out a creature, or just for smacking our opponent when they try to block us. Finally, we have to round out our deck before we add mana. We have 18 deck selection spots here, where we have a lot more free reign. Of the stuff I see here, it's no question. Kytheon's Irregulars is a dang house. Grasp of the Hieromancer is also excellent, as it makes our creatures stronger, and when they attack, it allows us to tap down one of our opponent's creatures, taking one of their blockers out of the equation. We're definitely running with that. This decision is now tougher, but looking at what we have, we don't have enough enchantments in our deck to currently, or maybe we do. We are running Grasp of the Hieromancer and 4 copies of Inferno Fist. So you know what? Creatures are better than non-creatures. Let's jam in the Blessed Spirits. Of the stuff we now have available, we have Enthralling Victor, I think is the strongest choice. A 2/2 first strike flying is okay, but for 4 mana, I want something a little stronger, and Victor also gives us the option to steal an opponent's defense out from under them. We're going to grab 2 of him. We're also going to pick up the other Blessed Spirits here. One of the things to keep in mind with building is you want to run a certain number of each creature, because consistency is key. And if it's really important to your deck, you want to jam in as many copies as you can to maximize your chances of drawing it. Flame Shadow Conjuring is stuck here, and I'm afraid we're not going to get rid of it, but I don't think it's something we want to do. It's really useful for making copies of our creatures, but by the time we drop it on turn 4, we've hopefully done enough damage that we don't need them anymore. We could continue with the enchantment track and hope that the deck decides to give us some of our emissaries of Heliod, and between the ones we see here, I think that we want the one that gives us flying more. So we're going to grab that. We don't get any more, however, and we still have 9 slots to go. Reprisal is a good way to get tough creatures that will give us trouble out of the way, so we'll pick that up. Similarly, we are on a heavy aggressive track here, so Juggernaut will let us beat down very hard. We'll pick up 2. Now we come back here and we see Scrapyard Mongrel. We currently only have 2 artifacts in our decks, and since he only gets his bonus ability if we control an artifact, I don't think we want to go that deep on him. I think he's just a little too much. On the other hand, we only have a handful of 4 drops, so maybe he's a decent pickup. For right now though, we're going to grab a 3rd Juggernaut. We'll decide after that. Goblin Arsonist has made it into a lot of my decks because when he dies, he still does damage, but I don't think... The more I play him, the less impressed with him I am, so honestly, we are going to just go grab the Mongrel here and hope for the best. Here we all have a choice of a Flaring Flamekin, and given how many enchantments we have in our decks at this point, which activate his special ability of giving it +2/+2, trample, and the ability to give himself +1/+0 for a single red mana, I think we're willing to try it. We're going to grab the Reprisal, more removal. We're also going to go ahead and grab the Infectious Bloodlust. At this point we've made it clear that we do like auras, so we'll pick one up. Suntail Hawk is a 1 for a 1/1 flyer, which doesn't impress me that much. It dies to a light breeze, and even though flying's great, we have to put way too much effort into it to get much value out of it. Elite Vanguard we've already picked up at least one of, so we'll pick up another here. Same with Nimbus Wings. We'll grab 2 more. So, that's our deck. Now we don't have to do anything for the lands here. The game decides for us. It's giving us our Boros Guildgates, obviously. It's giving us Clifftop Retreat, a mix of plains, mountains, and Rogue's Passage, which will be very useful late game as it allows us to sink our mana to make one of our creatures unblockable this turn. That'll let us, our big creatures, like our Juggernaut, get in for a strong victory when otherwise we may be just stuck. So it seems like we have a decent deck here. We're going to go do some games, and then we'll see. But first, the most important thing of all, we have to decide what we look like today. That looks good. And we're in a red-white deck. I think we're slightly more red than white, so let's get a mountainous background. And last but not least, we'll just call it All Out Assault. Why not? Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and start doing my overdub here. I'll cut y'all into some of the really cool stuff that happens later. Thanks for watching. So for our first game, there ends up not being much to say. We draw into a nice curve, and the AI has to mulligan down to 5. We go ahead and get out one of our 1-drops, with our intention being to hit the opponent as fast as we can, as hard as we can. Our opponent's playing blue mana, but unfortunately, as you're going to see, it never really amounts to anything because they don't draw anything. We play Inferno Fist on our creature, attack for 4. Once again, the AI doesn't seem to be able to do anything, possibly because it's waiting on its 2nd or even 3rd color and it's just not getting there, but in the meantime, we are good to continue. I misclick a couple times trying to hit the right card, and you'll notice I do that quite a bit. My instinct is to click and drag while playing these cards, but my advice to you, do not do that. It's a good way to misclick and end up having to cast a spell you do not want to. We draw a 2nd Inferno Fist here, which we put on our Kinsblade, allowing us to attack in this turn for an additional 8 damage. Our opponent now, on his other turn, is only down to 3 life, and he still only has 2 lands. He still can't do anything, so we proceed to just attack with the team and take a quick victory. With that said, round 1 is down. Let's go to game 2. So we kick things off in round 2 against yet another opponent. The opponent gets to go first, but we have another solid hand with good lands and a nice curve. There's a definite game plan here, and we decide to keep. The opponent once again has to mulligan to 6, and they enter with a slow start with a bunch of tapped lands, while we are once again able to come out of the gate swinging with a powerful attacker. The opponent continues to play tap lands, playing in 3 colors, which allows us to continue to build up our offense while they are unable to do anything. We go ahead and play our Kinsblade here to get in for an extra damage on this first turn, meaning our opponent's immediately on the back foot as we continue to attack. So not to spoil the way this is going to end, but if you recall how in the last round the opponent never really did anything and we proceeded to beat face, well, spoiler alert, that's what we're doing again, as our opponent has yet again not played anything, allowing us to swing in for 4 more damage, putting them down to 13 on turn 3. In another couple turns, we will wrap this up. Our opponent finally does play a card, and it's Animus Awakening, which is all well and good for putting lands onto the field, but if you don't have anything to do with your lands, it doesn't much matter. So another one comes in tapped, and even though they are up to 6 lands, they don't have anything to do with them, and we're just continuing with our offensive. We play another mirror here, my logic being that if they do eventually get some blockers out, we'll just be able to run our mirrors into them and win by suiciding them to activate their effect, which is when they die, I get to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Turn 7 arrives and they finally play a creature, a Rock Maulers. This is an excellent card, but for the reasons that we already discussed, I could just sacrifice my mirrors to it. But I don't end up having to, because I have the Grasp of the Hieromancer, which allows me to tap his blocker down and attack for lethal. Opponent 2 lasts no longer than opponent number 1, and we go on to round 3. So we begin a round 3 with a hand that has only white mana, and we want red. We could just play the Kinsblade, but we need the 2 red for Emberhauler, so we throw it back. Then we draw a 1-land hand, which also doesn't have the white that our hand now predominantly needs, so we throw it back again. And do you see the problem here? Once again, there's no plan. There's no plan. It's so expensive. So we go ahead and instantly restart the battle. As a word, don't do that against human opponents, guys. They then have to battle the AI, and I know you want to get back into it, but ride it out. Or at the very least, just end the game by never doing anything. That said, though, against the AI, go nuts. This hand is much better, having plans for turns 2, a bunch of mirrors, and Inferno Fist. And then with our 1-drop appearing in our first draw, it gets actually better. Our opponent, for once, did not have to mulligan, so it started with a full hand of 7, and they're playing blue and red. They also get out one of the Perilous Mirrors, which causes no end of trouble for our small creatures, meaning that even if we attack with them, when the mirror dies, it'll just kill our creature. So we go ahead and declare combat here, seeing if the computer feels like trading. And it does, meaning it now has only me to do the damage to, meaning I can now play my creature without having to worry about it. I go ahead and bring out a mirror of my own, hoping to capitalize next turn on the Knight's ability, since my opponent will now have more lands than I will, and I can get a bonus planes out of my deck. Another Perilous Mirror comes down as well, which makes me exceptionally happy that I did play that the way that I did. Once again, we go to combat first, offering our opponent trades and seeing if they want to take it. The AI doesn't this time though, so we get in for a hit, but nevertheless, we go ahead and run out our creature to get our bonus planes out, and then we play our land for the turn. We play out another mirror of our own. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a mirror match. No, I'm not sorry. So our opponent plays Harbinger of the Tides, which allows him to return target tapped creature we control to our hand. He chooses our mirror, which is fine. We'll just run him back out next turn. Our opponent plays a land, it enters tapped, he doesn't attack, but he does play a Molten Vortex here. Molten Vortex allows him to pay 1 red mana and discard a land card to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. It's one of those cards that that gets really good in the late game. Once you have already 5 or 6 lands on the field and you don't need any more than that, it allows you to then just start using your lands as a resource to do damage. A way to make use of what normally would be pretty much a dead draw. It's always something nice to have. So we attack here, and we willingly offer a trade. We know that he's going to use his Perilous Mirror to kill ours, but we get to do damage to him with our mirror, and then we can run out another one. We now have solid control over the field, and I'm also trying to bait out any of the lands in his hand, which he can use to try to blow us up with his enchantment. He uses a Yaeva's Force Mage here, which returns our mirror to our hand. Whatever, we'll bring it back out here. We do also decide to play the Blessed Spirits, though, in order to get an air game going, since he doesn't seem to have any flyers of his own, so while he deals with the mirrors on the ground, our spirits can be attacking through in the sky. He plays a Foundry of the Consuls here, which he can pay 5 mana and sacrifice to put 2 1/1 Thopters into play. We go ahead and when he attacks, we block with our mirror and we remove it from the field. We also attack with our Blessed Spirits in the air, and while we aren't drawing any of our Inferno Fists or any of the enchantments we packed in to try to power them up, that's okay. Our opponent sacrifices his land at this time to play 2 Thopters, which he trades with our spirits. And during our second main phase, I impatiently try to jam out too many things. We play a 1-drop, and we play our Hounds, which get bigger if we have an enchantment on the field. And fortunately, I have one right here. I go ahead and play it, and we declare attacks here, getting in and reducing our opponent to 8 damage. We've definitely got control of the board now, especially considering our opponent couldn't do anything during his last turn. So we attack with everybody, and the opponent finding nothing, we get victory number 3. So we go into our 4th and final game against another opponent who is mulliganed to 6. And we find our hand here isn't incredible, but it's good enough. There's definitely a plan when we have removal, and we have some creatures. Our hand gets much better here as we draw a 2-drop that we can get down, so we now have a 2, 3, 4-drop curve, and we also have a creature who benefits from getting an enchantment on it, which we just so happens we have. It just so happens we drew a second one as well. I also realized that in round 3, I said that the Scrapyard Mongrel got a bonus from enchantments. I meant to say artifacts. My bad. So anyway, our opponent has played a tap land, and we are going to go ahead and run out our 2-drop here, which we did last turn, excuse me. We're going to go ahead and run out our 3-drop here, and we are going to go ahead and attack for 2. Our opponent plays a creature that gives one of our creatures -1/-1, which is not enough, unfortunately, to kill our creature, allowing us to keep going. We play an Inferno Fist on our creature, and we go ahead and declare attacks. Our opponent tries to block here, and we let him in order to keep the mana up to play another drop. We could have sacrificed him to deal 2 damage, but keeping multiple creatures on the field seems like the better play here. So our opponent plays Reprisal, which he uses to blow up our creature, and since we already used our mana, we couldn't fire off our Inferno Fist at his face, which is too bad. We go ahead and play an Inferno Fist, though, on our 2/1 and declare attacks, putting our opponent down to 8. This time, we do smartly leave the mana up to do the 2 damage in case he tries anything funny. He keeps playing tap lands, though, and even though he finds a card to play on turn 3, it's a card that doesn't actually do anything until the next turn when he has more creatures to play, and we don't plan on letting him live that long. We draw another enchantment here that would give our creature flying and even more power, but we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. Our opponent's already shown that they have removal, so we play Enthralling Victor here, and looking at my notes, the only thing I wrote about this part of the game is abs. I'm so mature. Another land comes in. While our opponent does have a 3/3, now we have the ability to simply put our eyes to the skies and attack in the air with everybody. With our opponent being unable to block, we get in for the damage we need to secure victory number 4. And between that and the award we're about to get, that gives us enough money for a booster pack. So far, we've gotten some pretty good stuff. We've gotten only rares, though. We haven't gotten any mythics. Let's cross our fingers for getting one today. And we got there. Oh my goodness, did we get there. We got another Grasp of the Heromancer, which, as we discussed before, is excellent. In an aggressive deck, or even just a mid-range or control deck, tapping down creatures to get in with yours is incredible. Knight of the Pilgrim's Road is a solid renown creature. A 3/2 for 3, that's already pretty solid, and the ability that once it does damage to the opponent once, it becomes a 4/3, fantastic. Finally, we picked up another Undead Servant, which, as we discussed before, you need as many of them as you can to get the most advantage out of his ability. It's a nice thing to snag another. Necromantic Summons is actually a bit of an improvement over the available uncommon we already have that brings creatures back from the graveyard, as this has the potential to bring it back even stronger and doesn't saddle it with becoming a zombie. Currently, there's nothing that really penalizes creatures for being a zombie, but in the future, you never know. Jesse and Thief is also a very solid card. Prowess is a mechanic that's very easy for players to underestimate, and it lets you get much stronger and get in damage where you otherwise wouldn't have. And when it deals damage to a player, you draw a card. Card draw is never a bad thing, unless you have to jump through some complete hoops. And doing damage to your opponent, well, that's something you're already trying to do. But finally, oh boy, rubbing my hands together here, this is exciting. We got Liliana, the Heretical Healer. Ooh, this is going to take me a second. Okay. Liliana is one of the planeswalkers. This is her legendary creature form. For 3 mana, she has lifelink. She's got 2 power and 3 toughness. This is already a good card, by the way. Not even ignoring the rest of that text. That stuff right here, the lifelink, the cost, the power, it's already good, but it gets better. So whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you exile Liliana, and then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control. And if you do, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token, which means not only does she become a planeswalker, she leaves a creature behind. But I know what you're thinking. Transform? The heck does that mean? Oh boy, this is where it gets really exciting. Okay, so when one of these planeswalker creatures leaves the field, they transform. Meaning, you literally take the card, flip it over, and on the back is another card with its own abilities. This is Liliana, the Defiant Necromancer. You'll notice this card doesn't look like anything we've had so far. This is a planeswalker. The way planeswalkers work is, when they enter the battlefield with a number of loyalty equal to that number in the lower right-hand corner, in this case 3. Each turn, during one of our main phases, we can activate one of her abilities, judging by the cost. For instance, this one, its cost is +2. It gives us 2 more loyalty counters for doing it. For instance, in this case, she gets 2 loyalty, and each player, yes, that includes us, discards a card. We can do a -X, which lets us choose how many loyalty we want to remove, to return target non-legendary creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. A great way to revive creatures. Finally, for -8, we get an emblem, which is a lasting effect that stays on the field. There is currently, in all of Magic, no way to remove an emblem once it is on the battlefield. This emblem says, whenever a creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Anything that dies comes back. Your army will never be wiped away, and it will keep coming back. I cannot wait to use this thing. Alright guys, this has been Lee with Untapped Potential. This is a really exciting way to wrap up this episode. I hope you all have enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up, whatever it is these days. Thanks for watching.